Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, nice to see you again. Today we're going to talk about plants, aquatic plants. Not only do they look nice, they do a job. They help us maintain our water quality and give enrichment to fish that live in there and just generally do good things. So we want them, but they can be expensive. So today I want to look at some ways to get some free plants, and not just the standard ways, but maybe look at some other ways to accelerate how we do that and keep it going potentially forever. For some time now I've been looking into ways to make the most of the plants that I've got and keep them going and potentially supply other tanks that I've got in here. And the obvious ways we'll talk about very quickly, but there are some less obvious ways that I've been trialling for a good number of months. I'm going to show you the results towards the end of this video. Good and bad. So the more traditional or obvious way is to let the plants do the work for themselves. If you look at most stem plants, they can be propagated by taking cuttings and then just replanting the cuttings, and you just keep doing that, rinse and repeat, and you'll eventually have a jungle. I can't offhand think of a stem plant that won't work like that, and that is a very good way to do it because they get most of their nutrients from the water column, so you can just cut, plant, and build out that bushiness. Other plants like your Vallisonarius here, they start off as the adult plants, which then send off runners, which start new plants, and that will just continue in a chain for ever and ever. If they go a bit off track, like if you wanted them along the back, these ones have actually started moving towards the front, you can just cut them off and replant them, and they will just keep going again indefinitely. And then there are things like this, which aren't necessarily aquatic plants, but this is a pothos. This is a plant which will root readily in water without soil. And you can just take clippings of this. The way that I would do this normally is I would take one of the runs and make sure I've got 2 or 3 leaves going, take a cutting and then just put it in a glass of water, and in a few weeks you have a whole new plant that you can start off with. For example, this is one I've taken the day before yesterday. It hasn't actually started rooting yet, but it will start. Well, maybe it has started. There's a couple starting to go. Just leave it sat in water like this, and in a couple of weeks you'll have a plant that you can then stick in a tank like these ones up here. I've got these ones are maybe 3-4 weeks old, maybe a bit longer than that, but this is great because these absolutely love sucking nitrates out of your water, so they can really help you control that and balance it in your tank. And this is just something you can keep going forever. So once I've got them in there, I'll move them into a tank, I'll move these ones into a different tank. I've done this for years and given loads of them away, sell them at auctions, things like that. Really fantastic way to give a bit of a unique look if you're into that kind of thing, but also just help with controlling things. Not necessarily the most beautiful thing, but I have seen it in fish rooms, even in my fish room in the past, where after a couple of years, this can be going all around the room and just giving a really nice planty vibe to your fish room. So they're your more traditional, straightforward ways of propagating plants, but I think I've titled this video Free Plants for Life. So we need to look at alternative methods, or better, more accelerated methods. So now I have to take you back to me 3 or 4 months ago when I started this experiment. So say hello to old me. It's the evening of the 15th of April. I've just published the video about my quarterly fish room cleanup, where I clean everything up, and it's reminded me about something I said I was going to do once I cleaned up the fish room. I've always had an interest in propagating my own plants, and I tried this once years ago and it worked fairly well, but I didn't have space at the time, and I have created myself a little bit more space on that rack down there, which you can't see, down there. And I found myself a nice shallow tub. And I watched a video a couple of months ago where someone was doing just this with Bucephalandra, and the thing that piqued my interest was they used the tub just like that, and they used this kind of crate. This is actually a tank divider, and I remember thinking at the time, oh, I've got some of that, it's somewhere, and I had no idea where it was. So I found it when we were doing the tidy up. So I've got some of this crate. I've got one of these little shallow tubs, so I thought I'll do it myself and bring you along for the journey. You can see how you can effectively create yourself a limitless supply of plants. Do you want to have a go? You're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need some nice sharp scissors. You're going to need some donor plants. So in this case, I'm going to use some Anubias nana and some Bucephalandra Thea green. These should work perfectly. but lots of different plants will work. You want a clear box with a clear lid, ideally a lid that fits quite tightly or snaps shut like this. And the idea is we're going to put in a couple of centimetres of water in the bottom of this, mixed with some fertilisers, and some kind of grid or something where we're going to put the roots of the plant here, and then float this, not float it, but put it in the water where the leaves of the plant will sit above the water and the roots will be in the water. That's the theory. You could use something like this, some egg crate, plastic egg crate that you get, some old plant pots, plastic plant pots, just cut them down so they perform the same function. Now, this is essentially, this isn't my idea. This is something that I saw years and years and years ago, but there was a video a couple of months ago that they used this exact stuff that made me remember it and go, that's a good idea for a video and a good idea for a project. So I will try and remember what that video was and put a link in the description, but if you are that creator or know what video I'm talking about and I haven't done that, please put it in the comments. I'll pin it because I don't want to take credit for this, because it probably wasn't his idea either, but this is a well-trodden way of doing it. So let's get on with it. First things first, we need to take our donor plants and cut them up, which sounds a bit too drastic, but I'll explain what I mean. So let's take a look at the Anubias first off. As you can see there, this is the top view of the plant. This is where the leaves are, and on the bottom is the roots, and in between the two is what's called a rhizome. If you look even closer down there, you'll see some really small leaves, and these are the new growth. So that's the way the plant grows. It's fairly obvious when you think about it like that. The small leaves get bigger and the plant gets bigger. What we're going to do is we want to cut the rhizome so as we get a couple of leaves, a couple of bits of roots, and make lots of little small plants. So from this is what you would buy in a pot. From this, we're going to try and get as many plants as we can and propagate them to make bigger plants like this size, and then repeat the process over and over again, effectively giving us unlimited plants forever. I think that was the title of the video that reminded me to do this, something along those lines. Anyway, we're going to do that with the Anubias, and a similar story with the Buse, which we'll just try and cut off little clumps, separate it out of the pot, little clumps of leaves and roots, and plant them in this box. So this is going to take some time, so I recommend keeping a hold of the label, just keeping it in the box that you're using, just so as you remember in 6 months' time what it was you actually planted. But the first step is just to carefully tease off this rock wool that you get in many planted pots, trying to be as gentle as you can and retain as many roots as you can, because that's what's going to help us make the new plants. So just very gently teasing away the rock wool, and just keep going until you have nothing but roots and plant left, which will leave you a little something like that. Now even that, you can kind of look at it and you can see that there might be a natural split. So you might want to start with that as one plant, or if you just kind of tease it apart, with the Buse anyway, if you tease it apart, yeah, you'll start to get left with little ones like this. And that's kind of fine, that's perfect size. We've got some leaves, and we've got some roots. So just repeat with the rest of the plant. With the Anubias, I find it slightly different because the rhizome is so thick. You want to take a sharp pair of scissors and just snip it at those same points. So again, kind of teasing a little bunch of roots, following it up to the rhizome, seeing where you're going to get a few bits of leaf, a few roots, and make several plants out of that. Snipping seems to work better than pinching because that just bruises things and doesn't matter. If you can't get all the rock wool off it, it's no great deal. In fact, it can help you poke it through the holes in the mesh, and it will eventually just drop off as you do your water changes, which we'll talk about in a minute. I find it best to just kind of start halfway through, try and avoid cutting as many roots as you can. Just find the halfway point and snip. good clean snip. And then you get left with 2, and then just repeat until you've got down to the size you're happy with. I'll probably go for maybe 4 or 6, try and get 6 out of this. So this one's being a little bit tricky in that rather than the rhizome being a long straight stick, it's a kind of clump of rhizome, and I think if I cut that one too much I'm going to end up killing it, so I'm just going to leave that one as it is, which is already quite big, with the idea being that that will continue to grow and the rhizome will grow as well and produce more bits I can clip at a later date. So I've ended up with 3 bits of Anubias and I think 7 or 8 bits of Buse, which is fine to get started with. This is a long-term project, so it's not going to hurt if you start slow. So then the fun part is just poking these through the holes, whatever way works best for you. So give some room to grow. Be fairly gentle here. All you want to do is just make sure at least some of the roots are coming down underneath. So this bit here is going to be underwater, this bit is going to be above water. So you take your little plantlets and just pull them gently through so that you can achieve that. As you see there, I've got a couple there. Roots visible on this side, leaves on this side, and then just fill up, leaving room to grow. I've used 3 here because that's what I found in the first box I looked in, and I think that'll be enough for this little project. So I'll just go ahead and fill that up. So some of these are small, some of them are tiny. This is going to be a bit of an experiment for me as well. I don't know if that's too small, but we'll see what happens. That's why I've gone with a couple of smaller ones and a couple of bigger ones like that. And see what does best. And like I say, if you don't get all the rock wool off at this point, that's kind of fine. Kind of helps lodge them in there, and it will just drop off in time. So that's all my bits of Buse. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bits of Buse off that one plant. And the idea is we're doing this, you could do this in your aquarium and plant this and that would be fine, but because we're doing it in this method, it's going to supercharge it and make it do it a lot faster than it would in your aquarium. Yeah, be interested to see if that one actually does anything. And then we'll use this square here for the Anubias. What I like to do is, I don't want the roots too long. I'll just give them a little bit of a trim, bunch them together, and then we can get them in like so. I have heard people say trimming the roots encourages new growth. I don't know how true that is, but we're doing it. And then this big clump that I couldn't actually split anymore doesn't actually have all that many roots in it, so we'll see how this one does. So it's got enough, hopefully, but we'll see how we do. And then the idea is, so like I say, I've left the labels so as I know what these are afterwards. If your memory's as bad as mine, that might be important. Get that in, and then we're going to add enough water to this container just to bring it up to the level of the grate. So not that much at all. So I'll go and get some and do that. So I'm using HMA water. Tap water is probably going to be fine. Tank water is probably going to be fine. Yeah, you just want enough water that you're getting all these roots wet. The idea is that you'll put the lid on, that will keep in the humidity of the water so nothing will dry out completely. That's kind of it, that'll do. Next you want to add a couple of drops of fertiliser. In this case I'm going with some TNC Complete. I think any complete fertiliser will do. People will have many and varied opinions about what fertiliser and how much, etc. But I think anything that's covering the basics will do a good enough job for my liking. And I'm just going to do a couple of drops. It's not going to take much because there's not a huge volume of water in there. It's probably more than it needs to be, give it a quick shurge about, and that's it. Now we put the lid on. We're going to put a light on top. We're going to open the lid once a week to air it out and potentially do a water change. The water change will just be pour out that stuff, and it's going to be easy because we'll just lift out the grate, tip out the water, refresh it, more ferts, back on again. So just once a week we're going to check on it. We're going to have a light on it for, I don't know, 8 hours a day. That seems sufficient. We shouldn't get any algae because the leaves aren't underwater, so the algae might form down here, but we'll tip that out and wipe it down once a week. And in a few months, hopefully, we'll see some dramatic growth. So I'll take a picture of day one, and then we'll do like a weekly picture and see how we got on. So there we go, it's in there. I like to see it. I've just got one of these tiny little cheap LED lights. This one actually has a timer on it that does 6 hours, does 3, 6 or 12 hours. I don't want 12, so we're doing 6. This is meant to be simple, meant to be easy. Now we wait.
Making plants from other plants, the perfect plan to save some money, simple. Easy, but will it work, or will it burn my time and sanity? I'm the plant man. I'm making plant plans, yeah. I'm the plant man.
So I think we're on like week 6, 7, 8, I'm not entirely sure. And while there have definitely been some growth, there's lots of fresh growth, it's not exactly rocket ship growth. I'm just not that happy with how well that's done. So while there is some growth there, I think there's a better way to do it. So I'm going to change tack. One of the things that I've been looking at while trying to find the original video that inspired me to do this was other ones that are doing it with substrate. So I think more nutrients need to get in there. So while I've been doing this with water that's got fertilizer in it, I'm going to add a layer of substrate underneath that these things can root into. The idea being that they can get a lot more out of the substrate than they can just with the water, with the fertilizer. Just for whatever reason, it's not working for me. It might work for someone else, but we're going to try it a different way. So I've got some smaller little tubs like this that are the same sort of thing, these little propagators, where I'm going to put in a little bit of substrate. I'll probably still use these grid things if they fit, and we'll try it like that. So I'm going to use my, let me grab it. I'm going to use some of this, which is NutriBase, which you'll have seen me use on Megatank 2 and various other ones, where I'm seeing fantastic growth using this as something that I then cap with soil. But if I just use this on its own, making all the nutrients available to the plants, I'm still not going to submerge them. I'm going to try and grow them immersed. It should be able to get them a lot more nutrients into the plants. So we'll see if this accelerates the growth a little bit. It's an experiment. I am not a master aquarist by any stretch of the imagination, so I'm just trying things to see if I can get something that works a bit better. So we'll try that. So I'm going to take my tub like this, basically a little sprinkling, not much more than that, I don't think is needed, and we're just going to keep it humid and damp. We should still avoid all the problems of any algae growth or things like that, but it should give things a little bit of a better kickstart. So we'll see how we get on. So there we go, I've migrated them into these boxes. See if that makes any difference over the next few coming weeks. I'm just keeping everything a little bit damp. Going to get it under the lights as per before. Same sort of thing, once a week. Give them a little bit of air, give them a little bit of a refresher in terms of water. Should be good to go. So there's a little bit of drainage at the bottom. So as you can see, it is perfectly sodden. Which takes us back to present day. So we're back to me again. You be the judge. Let's have a look. So this is the Bucephalandra. And over here we've got the Anubias. Now, to me, there absolutely has been growth. There are new leaves on both the Buse and the Anubias. Is it hugely accelerated growth over ones that have just been planted? I don't know. I mean, given time, yes, that's one plant that will turn into several plants. Yes, that's one plant that will turn into several plants. But, I mean, it's not earth-shattering. It's not what I've seen in the other videos. So I'm a little bit disappointed. But it definitely is working. And I'm going to keep doing it just to see if maybe there's just a cliff we go off at some point where things just kick in. But it's better than it was. I've not had any of the algae issues that I had when I was trying it in the bigger white plastic box, so I think this is definitely the way to go. And all I've been doing is keeping that substrate damp and keeping the lids on, and that's done quite well. What has worked much better is the moss. Now this is just Java moss, but I can't see any reason why this wouldn't work with any kind of moss. But this started at the same time as the other ones with very small, I'll cut in a picture of the starting point for this. So for the moss, I've just chopped them up with scissors, really, a small handful, and then I've done like eight squares full. I've just stuffed them into some little squares, and we'll see how that does. Same thing, I'm just going to squish them with water every now and again, maybe once a week. Keep the humidity in with a lid. We'll see what happens. Very small bits of moss, which has thickened up lovely. I probably want to keep this going like this for another couple of weeks to get a proper mat. And I could also use that in any kind of ways because it is kind of attached to the grid system, the grid stuff. So I could put that at the back of a tank and have a moss wall, so that'd be pretty cool. But that is definitely working, and it's definitely working faster than the same moss that I had just growing in tanks. So I think that is pretty good, and that will work quite well. So for mosses, this is definitely a way to go. So once you've done your initial outlay, yes, there are several methods there that I think can give you free plants for life if you just continually propagate them in different ways. Did the accelerated versions work? Not as well as I thought they might, but I can't deny that there has been growth, but you would get that anywhere. To start your plant collection, by all means check out aquariumadventures.co.uk and go on my shop. I have lots of plants for sale. We've just had a new shipment in, so they're nice and fresh and ready, and they can get to you this week if you want to. There's some buse in there, there's all kinds of things that you can start your propagation journey with. But yeah, I'll leave that question up to you as to whether you think these are the greatest techniques or not. But what I am interested in is whether or not you have any foolproof techniques. I'm kind of a foolproof type guy. I need something that's going to be solidly working every time. What should I try out for the next video? Is there any secret techniques you know about that are worth giving a go? And then hopefully, once you've clicked that subscribe button, you can come back and see me have a go at those techniques. But thanks for joining me for this one. As always, come and see me on a Friday night, 9 PM UK time. We do a bit of a live stream with some games and quizzes and things like that. Be nice to see you there. If not, go and check out one of the other videos, or I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye!